So children, last class we discussed about the functions of the Prime Minister, and now we are going to discuss about cabinet ministers. You heard about cabinet ministers? Anyone heard about cabinet ministers, cabinet meeting and all?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, at least in the news. So the Council of Ministers is the official name for the body that include all the ministers, and it include the Council of Ministers include around 60 to 80 ministers for doing different tasks. So at the union level, we have around 60 to 80 ministers are there for doing the different tasks. And among them, we are dividing the ministers into three categories. And the fun and the foremost important is the cabinet ministers. Okay, usually the top level leaders of the ruling party who are in charge of the majority ministries and the cabinet ministers meet the decision. They meet together to take the decision in the name of council of ministers. At the time of meeting and all, these cabinet ministers will meet together to take the decisions. The Council of Ministers include, always remember this, the Council of Ministers include around 60 ministers. That is, so many ministers are there at the central level. But at the time of cabinet meeting, only this cabinet ministers will be meet there and they are taking the decisions. The cabinet ministers meet to take decisions in the name of Council of Ministers. And this is the inner ring of a council of ministers. This include council of ministers and this is the cabinet. This cabinet include around 20 ministers and they are usually the top leaders of the ruling party. This cabinet ranked ministers are the top leaders of the ruling party and they are taking the decisions in the name of council of ministers. And these are some of the cabinet ministers. You know that Arun Jaitley or Amit Shah, Nirmala Sitharaman, uh, the ministers, all these ministers are Smriti Irani, they all are the cabinet ranked ministers. So around 12 ministers, now around 12 ministers are there as a cabinet rank. So for taking any decisions of the government, they will sit together and take the decisions on behalf of the council of ministers. That is about cabinet ministers. So the top level leaders of the ruling party are in charge of the major ministries and the cabinet ministers, they may meet to take decisions in the name of council of ministers, and it is the inner ring of the council of ministers and it comprises of around 20 ministers maximum. Then the ministers of state with independent charges. So the central ministry, it is divided into three categories. One is cabinet ministers. The second one is ministers of state with independent charges. They are usually in charge of smaller ministries. State with independent charges means they are usually in charge of smaller ministries and they participate in the cabinet meeting only when they specially invited. If they are needed only, they will be there in the cabinet meeting. And the ministers of the state are attached to and required to assist the cabinet meeting. One minister from Kerala is there, Muralidharan. You heard about him? He was a minister of state related to parliamentary affairs. Aditya, you didn't have the lunch? Huh?
I didn't eat breakfast.
Breakfast now. It is not breakfast. What to call for that? In between lunch and tea time. Okay, so the cabinet ministers, the ministers itself, they are three categories are there. The topper rank is the cabinet ministers. They are usually the top leaders of the ruling party and they are taking the decisions in the name of the council of ministers. They are taking the decisions in the name of council of ministers and they are the act as an inner ring of the council of ministers. Then coming to the ministers of state with independent charges, that means they are usually in charge of smaller ministries. They are in charge of smaller ministries. They will participate in the cabinet meeting only when they are specially invited. And the ministers of the state are attached and required to assist these cabinet ministers. Cabinet ministers, they have some other ministers to help them. Uh, they are called as the state ministers of state. Okay, the cabinet, it works as a team, and no minister can openly criticize any decision of the government, even if it is about other ministry or department. They are working as a team. If you are working as a team, we cannot blame each other. Same way, the ministers also working as a team and they are not blaming each other. And the ministers are the ministries have a secretaries who are the civil servants, and the secretaries provide the necessary background information to the ministers to take the decisions that we discussed earlier. Because the ministers are not much experience, they don't have, maybe they don't have that much subject knowledge. The finance minister Nirmala Sitharaman, maybe she is not much aware of the economic conditions, so she is advice, you have an advisor, an economic advisor will be there to help her in the matters related to that. It's related to law, and a secretary will be there. So they are there to help them to take necessary decisions, and also for providing the right information to them. And the next is president. You know that the president of India, we call him as a rubber stamp. Simply, we are saying that it's a rubber stamp. The last week you watched that the American election, right? There the president is directly elected by the people. The John Biden, he was directly facing the election and he is directly elected by the people. America is the presidential system, but in India we are following the parliamentary system. And here, who is more powerful, president or prime minister?
Prime Minister.
Prime minister. In India, prime minister is more powerful than president. But all the laws are in whose name?
President.
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 Like the Queen in Britain, president in India. All the rules, all the treaties and everything is in his name, but actually he have no role. Then how the president of India is elected? He is not elected directly by the people. The president of India is not directly elected by the people. All the members of parliament and the members of the assemblies elect him. Okay, he was elected by the members from parliament and members of the state legislative assembly. That is, an electoral college is electing him. The president is elected by an electoral college, which include the elected representatives of state legislative assemblies and the parliament. It includes the elected representatives of the state legislative assembly and the parliament. A candidate standing for the post of president has to get a majority of vote to win the election. So the president is elected by the electoral college, which include the elected representative from the state legislative assemblies and from the parliament. Then, what are the major powers of president? The president of India is the head of the state. Head of the state is president. Then he exercises only nominal power like the Queen of Britain. Then he supervises the overall functioning of all political institution. He supervises the overall functioning of the political institution. All government activities take place in the name of president. All the laws, everything is in the name of president. All laws and major policy decisions of the government are issued in his name. All major appointments, the last chapter we studied, the election commissioner was appointed by president. The Supreme Court Chief Justice was appointed by the president. The governors of the state was appointed by the president. The ambassadors to other countries are appointed by the president. So all the major appointments are made in his name. And all international treaties and agreements are in his name. and he is a supreme commander of defense force. That is the three forces: naval, army, and air force. He was a supreme commander of the three forces. Okay. So coming to the powers of president, the president of India is the head of the state. He was the head of the state and he exercised only nominal powers. The president, he supervises the overall functioning of all political institutions, and all the government activities take place in his name. All laws and major policy decisions are issued in his name. All the major appointments are made in his name. All the international treaties and agreements are in his name, and he is a supreme commander of the defense force of India: army, military, and air force. He was a supreme commander of the defense force. Defense include three: army, naval, and military. He was the supreme commander of the military force in India. These are the powers of president. Okay, he have only nominal power. He's the head of the state, but he have only nominal power. But all the laws are in his name. All the major government decisions are in his name. All the international treaties are in his name. All the major appointments are done by him. Then what are the limitations of president? So all these are his power, but he has some limitations. The one is, he's the head of the state and not the head of the government. President is the head of the state, not the head of the government. Who's the head of the government? Head of the government? Prime Minister. Very good. Prime Minister. Therefore, the president enjoys only a nominal power, because in India we are following a parliamentary system of government where the president have only a nominal power. He's only the head of the state. And the president can ask the ministers to reconsider its advice, but if the same advice is given again, he is bound to act according to it. So suppose the parliament is passing, that is next. And a bill passed by the parliament become a law only after the president gives assent to it. If the president wants, he can delay this for some times and send the bill back to the parliament for reconsideration. But if the parliament passes the bill again, he has to sign it. See, we say that all the laws are in the name of president, but once the parliament passed a bill and sent it to the president for his assent, it get the approval of two houses and it's sent to the president for his assent. But one time if he feel that that bill is not in favor of the people, or for any reason, he can send it back. But again, if the parliament is passing the same bill, the president must sign in it. Okay. So even though he is he have the power to first one time he can send it back, but the next time, even they are sending the same bill which is passed by both the houses, the president must sign in it. That is also a limitation of his power. And the president can ask the council of ministers to reconsider its advice. But the same advice is given same way, like as a bill. If the same way the advice is again given to him, he must act accordingly. So even though we are saying that all the powers are only in his name, that's why he is called as a rubber stamp. All the powers are in his name, but actually the power is enjoyed by the head of the government. So what are the limitations of president? The president is the head of the state and not the head of the government. So he exercises only nominal powers, and that too on the advice of the Council of Ministers. The president can ask the Council of Ministers to reconsider its advice, but if the same advice is given again, he must act accordingly. Then a bill passed by the parliament become a law only if the president give assent to it. But if the president wants, he can delay this for some times and send the bill back to the parliament for reconsideration. But if again the parliament passes the bill, he must sign it. Then the appointments made by the President of India that we already discussed. He is appointing the Chief Justice and the judges to Supreme Court and High Courts. Then the Prime Minister of India is appointed by him. and also the election commissioners and ambassadors to other countries. Then you heard about the discretionary power of the president. Discretion, the president. When a party or a coalition of parties get a clear majority in the election, the president has to appoint the leader of the majority party or the coalition that enjoy the majority support in the Lok Sabha. If a party get a majority, the president can call them for forming the government. But when no party get a majority in the Lok Sabha, the president exercises discretion. When the president is using his discretionary power, suppose no party get a majority in the Lok Sabha. Out of that 272 is the minimum seat required. So all the parties, no coalition is there and the major parties get less than 272. That time, the president can use his discretionary power. The president appoints a leader who, in his opinion, can muster the majority support in the Lok Sabha. So at that time, the president can appoint a person, and in such a case, the president can ask the newly appointed to prove the majority in the Lok Sabha within a specific period of time. That is his discretionary power. That is very important. So even though we are saying that the president, only in the name, the power is to him, he have no actual power, but the most important power of the president is his discretionary power. That means, suppose if no one get a majority in the Lok Sabha, no political party or coalition government didn't get a majority in the parliament, the president can call a person to form the government and ask him to prove his majority in the parliament within a stipulated period of time. That is his discretionary power. Their president will decide whom he is calling for the post of the prime minister. Is it clear what do you mean by discretionary power? Discretion, that is, it depends on him. As per the president's wish, he will call a person. Okay, the president appoint a leader who in his opinion can muster the major support in the Lok Sabha, and in such a case the president can ask the newly appointed to prove the majority in the Lok Sabha within a specified time. That is a discretion. So what do you mean by the discretionary power of the president? If no party get a majority in the Lok Sabha, the president exercise his discretionary power. The president appoint a leader who in his opinion can muster the major support in the Lok Sabha, and in such cases the president can ask the newly appointed to prove majority in the Lok Sabha within a specified time. So executive include both political executive and permanent executive. Political executives are appointed for a specific period of time, but permanent executives are appointed for a long term. Then why the political executive are more powerful? Because they are elected by the people and they are answerable to the people. Then the most important of the political executive is the prime minister. He chairs the cabinet meeting. He coordinates the work of the different departments. His decisions are final. He exercises general supervisions of different ministries. All ministers work under his leadership, and the prime minister distributes and redistributes the work of the ministers, and he has the power to dismiss the ministers. If prime minister quit, the entire ministry will quit. Then cabinet ministers include, the council of ministers include cabinet ministers, minister of state with independent charge, and minister of state. Then president, he was the first person, he's the first person in India, and he's elected by an electoral college, which include the elected members of both state legislative assemblies and the parliament. And the power of president, he is the head of the state. but he is enjoying only a nominal power. All the decisions are taken in his name. All the laws are in his name. He is appointed. All the international treaties are in his name. And he is the supreme commander in chief of the defense force. But his power is very limited. He is only the head of the state. And once the president can ask the council of ministers to reconsider the advice, but again, if they are giving the same one, the president must act accordingly. And if a bill passed by the parliament, the president have the right to send it back, but if again it is sent back to him, he must sign in it. Okay, then the last one, that is judiciary. I think in your 8th standard, you studied one chapter of judiciary, right? Yes or no? Now I am taking in 8th that. So all the court, what do you mean by judiciary? All the court at different levels in the country are collectively called as judiciary. Judiciary means the court system. You know that it is an independent and powerful institution and which is needed for the democracies. And Indian judicial system consists of Supreme Court, High Court and District Courts. I think you're remembering this pyramid. Isn't it, children? Supreme Court, High Court and District Courts. So the meaning of judiciary, all the courts at different levels in the country are collectively called as judiciary, and it is the independent and the most powerful institution in a democratic form of government. And the judiciary consists of Supreme Court, High Court and District Courts. Then what are the important powers of judiciary or the role of judiciary? First one is settling disputes. Settling disputes means the court is there to settle the disputes between citizens, between citizen and government, between states and also between union and the state level. Between citizens, if any problem is between the persons, they can approach the court. Between a citizen and a government, then between two or more states. You remember that Mulla Periyar and all? That is between the two states and between the government and the union. Between the union government and the state government. So the first important power of judiciary is to settle the disputes. Second one, it is free from legislature and executive. Judiciary don't act on the direction of the government or according to the wish of the party in power. I think the last class you studied an example. If a politician is encroaching your land, you remembering that? Yes or no? Okay, that portion you are remembering, children? If a politician encroached your land, and if the politics, if it is not separate, yes or no, at least you are remembering it. No. Then nothing. Free from legislature and judiciary. So the judges don't act on the direction of the government or according to the wishes of the party in power. They are taking an independent decision. Legislature and judiciary are separated. It is free from legislature. Okay, first point is it will settle disputes. Second one, free from legislature and judiciary. Third one, it interprets the constitution of the country. If a parliament is passing any law, its validity is checked by the court. The Supreme Court have the power to interpret the constitution of the country, and also judicial review. What do you mean by judicial review? That means a review of a law. It's a review of a law passed by either the legislature, and the court have the right to strike down a law. That is the most important power, judicial review. That is, the court have the right to strike down a law if it feels that it is against the right of the people or if it is against the constitution. That is judicial review. Review the court, the Supreme Court have the right to strike down a law if it feels that that law is against the Constitution. Constitution is the supreme law of our land, and if any law passed by the Parliament is against the Constitution, the Supreme Court have the right to strike down the law. That is judicial review. And court act as a guardian of fundamental right and also public interest litigation, and it prevent the misuse of government power. You remember what do you mean by public interest litigation? You studied, Anjita, did you study what in public interest litigation?
No, ma'am.
No? So that means if on behalf, suppose if you feel that anyone's fundamental right, anyone's right is violated, on behalf of him, anyone can file a case in the court. Sometimes people, due to their lack of money or something, they are not ready to approach the court. So instead of them, any individual or institution can file a case on behalf of others. That is public interest litigation if they feel that their right is violated. So leave that point, okay? Then prevent the misuse of government power. The court is there to check the functioning of the government also. So what are the powers of judiciary? It include, it settle the disputes. It is free from legislature, judiciary, free from the legislature and executive. It is free from legislature and executive. Then it interpret the constitution of the country, judicial review. It's a guardian of fundamental right and prevent the misuse of government powers. Then about the appointment of the judges. Who is appointing the judge? Who is appointing the judges to Supreme Court?
President.
Loud now itself we discussed. Louder.
President.
President, very good. The President of India is appointing the judges to the Supreme Court and High Court. And how we can remove them from the post? It is through the process of impeachment. Okay. It is not so easy to remove a judge from his post. If we want to remove a judge, that process is called impeachment. It needs around 2/3 of the majority of the parliament. That means if a political party don't like a judge, it is not easy to remove him from his post. The president is appointing the judge after consulting with the prime minister. But if he want to remove him from the post, that process is called impeachment. The judge can be removed from his post. It is called impeachment. It need around 2/3 members, majority from both the houses. So the judges, don't forget this, the judges to Supreme Court and High Court are appointed by the president after consulting with the Prime Minister and the Chief Justice of India. And the hierarchy of the the supreme law of our country is Constitution. After that, Supreme Court, High Court and District Courts. This pyramid you remembering? Supreme Court, High Court and District Court. But above all, one law is there, that is Indian Constitution. Indian Constitution is a supreme law.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so coming to judiciary, judiciary include all the courts at different levels of the country are collectively called as judiciary, and it is an independent and powerful institution, And the Indian judiciary consists of Supreme Court, High Court, and the district courts. Then its functions include, it settles the disputes, it is free from legislature and executive, it interprets the constitution, judicial review, guardian of fundamental right. Our fundamental rights are protected by the judiciary as per Article 32 and Article 26, that is the right to constitutional remedies. If anyone's fundamental right is violated, they can approach the Supreme Court or High Court as per the Article of 32 and 226. Then prevent the misuse of government power. Then the appointment of a judge, the judges are appointed by the president on the advice of Prime Minister and consultation with the Chief Justice of Supreme Court. And once he is appointed, it is not easy to remove from him. Okay, don't forget this term. The judge can be removed by impeachment. A judge can be removed by impeachment, which is passed separately by 2/3 members of the two houses. And the hierarchy of judiciary in India include, our constitution is the supreme law. Below that, Supreme Court, High Court, and District Court.